I wonder with these running backs. So guys, we're talking about Miles Sanders, David Montgomery, Devin Singletary, Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris, Leonard Fournette. What do you think? It's not like Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs hit the market. Do you think that these guys could end up being true feature backs, have an increase in fantasy value, or do you think they're all destined to share? I mean, I know everybody shares, but I hope you kind of get what I'm saying here. Be in a timeshare that's not really exciting for fantasy football. Can any of them get into a better scenario than where they were last year?
Of the ones that we expect to leave?
Yeah, the big names. Yeah.
So I'm thinking of like Miles Sanders being forced to sign a deal that's a little less than what he expected with the Dolphins. Because like that's one team that I'd be surprised if they spent a ton of draft capital or a lot of salary cap space on, because that's just the nature of what Shanahan's system does, is they find running backs out of nowhere, or they trade for them in the case of Christian McCaffrey. And they go ahead and they use them in some sort of a tandem or a group. And so if Miles Sanders takes a cheap deal to be the Dolphins 1A, kind of like that, could that make him more valuable than a 5th round pick? Maybe late round 4. Like that's the type of thing that I'm thinking about. But like Sanders or Montgomery going to Carolina, no, I don't think they're going to get drafted higher than where they were last year or where they would be if they stayed with their current teams.
I think that
the only other place I could think of would be Cincinnati, where the Bengals say, all right, too much drama around Joe Mixon, plus he's getting older. I'm letting him go. And then let's go and get Miles Sanders or David Montgomery. And that's the guy who's going to just replace Joe Mixon in the offense. That would be a situation that I would imagine would be beneficial to their fantasy value.
To me, there are 4 teams that I'm very curious about. Dave mentioned 2 of them in Miami and Cincinnati. Philadelphia, what they're going to do, replace Miles Sanders if they let him walk, because clearly that offensive line and offense is great. And then Buffalo, because I think at some point you're going to see, if they get a guy that I think that they like, and it could be James Cook, but it just feels as if they haven't been ready to trust Devin Singletary, whether it was the Singletary-Moss combo or the Singletary-Cook combo this year, really outside of that stretch of games at the end of 2021. If they get, I think, somebody in place there that would be, prominent or the chance to be prominent, that situation could also be, very good. So those 4 teams are the ones that I'm curious to see what they're going to do. Atlanta probably be the 5th, just because I don't know if they're going to go with just a Tyler Algier solo act. I think that's another team that's going to add somebody to a team that can run the ball pretty well.
Is there something exciting brewing in Chicago? Could if they get a real speedster there to work in tandem with Justin Fields?
And they may have it ready for Herbert.
They do like Herbert, but is he more of a 1B than a 1A?
Ooh, Jets have finally made a deal.
Jets
have made a deal. It's happened.
And they released Braxton Berrios to free up some cap space, and they have just acquired Chuck Clark, safety from the Baltimore Ravens, for a 7th round pick in 2024. But everybody stay tuned, because the wheels are in motion, and we could get an Aaron Rodgers trade anytime. But all right, let's recap here. The best destinations for running backs. I heard 3 of them: Miami, Cincinnati, Buffalo. What was the 4th one? Philly. Okay, Dave, you wanted to add the Bears in there. I was surprised to see it. And look, I say this all the time. I don't take this as gospel, but PFF had the Bears as the 5th best run blocking team in the NFL. And that just goes to show that there is zero statistical argument to support David Montgomery. This is a kind of a different topic here. We'll get to it. But I think what excited me is I was just kind of going through some basic stats and a lot of the advanced metrics today. And since entering the league, these are guys who entered the league in 2019. Miles Sanders, Devin Singletary, and to a lesser extent, Damian Harris have a very good statistical profile. Singletary is shockingly good, by the way. Mm-hmm. And he's led the Bills in rushing all 4 of his seasons, which is pretty good. Now, I don't think he's an amazing running back, but I think he's been an underrated running back. But David Montgomery is nowhere near those guys. He had a lot of hype coming out of college. To me, maybe I'm being too basic. I don't think I'm being too basic. I'm not just looking at yards per carry. I'm looking at everything. To me, he has not had a good NFL career. And he would be probably the last one that I would want if I were an NFL GM. But he's had the most fantasy success, and he's been pretty good catching the ball. I think that kind of separates him from the other guys I mentioned. So I will give him that. But as a rusher, Sanders has had a great career, and Harris has had a great career, and Singletary's had a really good career. I mean, Singletary, among 55 running backs with 300 or more carries since he entered the league, he's 10th in yards per carry. He's 5th in explosive run rate. He's 6th in avoid rate. That's Devin Singletary. It's surprising. But Montgomery really stands out. He's bad in almost every category. And the Bears apparently had a really good offensive line last year and a mobile quarterback, which is supposed to help your efficiency. And Khalil Herbert tore it up. So I have zero excitement, zero enthusiasm for David Montgomery. I'm just throwing that out there right now.
He feels like your typical trap back. I think he's going to end up in a situation like you could see Carolina, Atlanta. I don't know if a contender is going to pay him, but maybe a cheaper deal. Maybe Miami just doesn't fit the profile there. But I think if he ends up in a situation where he's the lead guy, you got to hope he's going to find the end zone quite a bit. And I don't know if the teams that are rebuilding necessarily make a lot of sense from a fantasy standpoint. Like he's somebody that I think you settle for as opposed to target.
All right, just going back to that conversation, Miami, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Chicago as places you wouldn't mind seeing a running back go to. Dave, do you agree with the 4 that Jamie said? Miami, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think I do. The one other team is Carolina because there's an opportunity there for a running back to be a feature guy. They traded McCaffrey. Everybody knows that. Deontay Foreman's a free agent. They'll still have Chuba Hubbard, but I don't know if there's going to be a major commitment to Chuba Hubbard. They've got a pretty good offensive line working for him as well. New coaching staff, new philosophy. It'll be better than what they were last year. Upgrade at quarterback on top of it. I'm curious to see who that running back is because that's a pretty good spot to get opportunities.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if that's a Nyheim Hines destination as well. Frank Reich obviously loved him. And if Buffalo lets him go, which I think they have talked about maybe releasing him, he could be in the mix there too.
And if I'm just going to play devil's advocate, and I'll be honest with you, I kind of believe what I'm about to say. I don't really want a running back that I like to end up in Philadelphia or Buffalo. I understand the appeal of this high-powered offense, but it's year after year, time after time. Buffalo does not give the ball to their running backs. They don't really throw the ball to their running backs, and they've pretty much never truly featured a running back except for maybe a 5-game stretch here or there.
But that's kind of the point, though, is that a philosophical quarterback thing, or is that a trust in the player thing?
So I think James Cook is too good for that. I don't think James Cook is going to be a feature back. I don't think they view him that way. But I do think he's too good to just ride the pine and be I'm going to spell this guy for a series. I think he's going to have too big of a role. And then for Philadelphia, Jalen Hurts steals way too many touchdowns and doesn't throw to his running back. And they were pretty committee. They were more or less a committee. I mean, Sanders was the guy, but that just wasn't a great situation despite all the good things they had going. It wasn't a great situation for running back fantasy production.
But when you say someone you like, are you saying like Bijan getting drafted there? Are you saying, again, I don't think these free agents are like, oh wow, these are stars.
Well, I think Miles Sanders could be. That's the one guy. I want to know how you guys feel about.
Well, you're saying in Philadelphia, so I'm assuming he's leaving. So,
I think Philadelphia. I think that obviously it was in terms of just being efficient, it was a great place to be. Right, a great offensive line. Great offense.
Yes.
But in terms of fantasy points, it wasn't because they don't throw to their running backs. And Jalen Hurts had 20 carries inside the 5-yard line. Miles Sanders had 11. And then every now and then
you might be getting rid of the push though.
They might, yeah. But then they're also getting rid of probably a couple of offensive linemen. Shouldn't say that, but possibly.
Maybe one starter and one key backup.
But I think I'm just wondering if Miles Sanders, he's the one guy. Have we seen the best of Miles Sanders, or is there a star potential there if he really got the opportunity? I always wanted to see what he would look like. Remember his rookie year when Jordan Howard got hurt?
Yes.
He looked like he was on star trajectory, and he never really.
Yeah, 53 catches that year, right?
He did. And then I think he's had less than that in his last 2 years combined.
Right.
I think.
And he dropped a lot of passes a few years ago. So I don't know. I mean, do you think, is he the guy that did Philadelphia actually hold him back just with the way they call plays, basically?
We could assume that Philadelphia was nervous about him in a number of roles. Number one, the passing downs role because of the drops. Definitely took a step back after his rookie year there. Number two, availability. He had a bunch of injuries. I know that I was a little nervous to spend significant draft capital on him back in August because I was worried about him lasting the whole season. And you might be able to, I remember saying back then, you might be able to get off to a pretty good start with him. And if he lasts the whole season, then he'll be great. And I really think he hit his ceiling last year with over 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns. Hard to see that happening anywhere else. But he might get more opportunities if he goes to a Miami. Could be the feature back there. He's got to stay healthy, and he's got to convince a new coaching staff that, yeah, he can catch the football. I think it's a hard sell, though. I really – he finished this past year as like RB22 in PPR points per game. That might be where I'd expect him to go if he lands in a good spot this year.
He did that with 11 rushing touchdowns. He was RB22 per game PPR. Miles Sanders RB14 per game in non-PPR. So we're gonna take a break. This was a good conversation. I'm gonna wrap it up with this question. Do you think we could get, even if it were Bijan Robinson, it was the best scenario, your favorite free agent, your favorite running back, can we get a true top 12? Because Sanders did finish top 14, but on a per game basis, can we get a true top 12 running back in Buffalo or Philadelphia? Do you think that is realistic?
Yeah.
Yes, in Philadelphia.
Okay. Can we get a...
Oh, I think if Bijan goes to Buffalo, he's going to be top 12 guy.
We'll see. You're right. You don't draft Bijan Robinson, have him split with James Cook, I think is probably what we'll say.
I don't think they'll draft Bijan Robinson. Nothing in their history has suggested that they're about to spend, here's the word again, capital on their run game.